Good evening. Welcome to The Loop, a bold and fresh look at our lives in Kenya today. My name is Valentine Njoroge.
And my name is Wachira.
And tonight we're asking three very important questions. Just how did we raise so many rapists? Do we have a crisis of incest in this country? And how can you tell if your child is safe at home?
These are the issues we need to speak about because usually people tend to sweep them under the carpet and nobody wants to discuss them. But here tonight we're going to take a really bold look at it and we want you to join us in that conversation. Remember, you can use the hashtag TheLoopK24 on all our social media pages. That's TheLoopK24 on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We've got so much to get through on the show here today. But first, these are the stories making your headlines. Kenya registered the highest number of COVID-19 infections confirmed within 24 hours. 473 persons tested positive. This brings the total to 9,448. The youngest new patient is 1 year old, whereas the oldest is 90 years old.
In terms of gender, once again, 324 are male, while 149 are female. The youngest is 1 year old infant, while the oldest is 90 years old.
Universities and colleges that will not have met the set conditions by the World Health Organization, the Ministries of Education and Health will not be allowed to open.
Should we understand the behavior of COVID-19 better, or should any situation change as per the directives of WHO or Ministry of Health, we shall be prepared to move backwards.
The Sauti Sasa movement, led by Y-Act, an initiative by Amref Health Africa, launched the Sauti Sasa Youth Voices report on teenage pregnancy. The initiative hopes at engaging youth voices in developing effective solutions to challenges that they may face. Up until 2019, Kenya recorded the third highest teen pregnancy rates with 82 births per 1,000 births globally. 378,687 adolescents between 15 to 19 years and 20,444 adolescents between 10 to 14 years got pregnant in that year.
The reproductive health bill proposed by Nakuru Senator Susan Keheka has stirred a debate in Senate today during the public participation aimed at collecting views from stakeholders on whether the bill should pass into law or not. Led by lawyers Charles Kanjama, the stakeholders stated that the bill needed more amendment, given that as it is, it tends to advocate for teenage sex and legalize abortion.
Nowhere in clause 32 are we saying that children can consent to sex. We are also lawyers and we are also humans and we are mothers. And we know and we are champions of there is no way anybody under 18 can consent to sex.
You see, you're talking about unsafe abortion. So meaning, in that term, you're assuming there's what we call safe abortion. It's like you're telling the child, you just do safe abortion, that's okay. The problem is what we call unsafe abortion.
Amazing news, some shocking numbers there, and this is why we're having this conversation, looking at incest in our homes and just how dangerous they are for our children. We've been joined by Angelina Sikanda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Valentine, for having me.
So can you very quickly take me through your qualifications and your work at CRU?
Okay, personally, I'm a clinical psychologist, and also at CRU, I'm a program development manager, where we're working for women and girls in the country, trying to talk to our girls and women and also policymakers to improve the situation for women and girls.
Okay.
Yes.
So you've been following this issue for decades. Are these numbers true? Because there are many people saying, Apana, they're linked to the reproductive bill. They're not true.
Well, from what we found out, this is data from government hospitals. Our girls are going to hospital, they're seeking support, and so that's where the data is coming from the national hospitals in the country.
So you believe these numbers?
We believe those numbers are true. It's just that for the longest time, we've not been focusing on our girls to realize that we have a crisis. and it's time for us to address it.
Okay, so do we actually have a crisis of incest? We know we're in trouble with teen pregnancies. Somebody even said we're number 3 in the world. But do we have a crisis of incest here in Kenya?
We do have a crisis in incest. It's something that we don't talk about because it's embarrassing. It involves our family. It involves family members who are very close to one another. And nobody wants to come out openly and say, I have got a problem.
Right.
Yes.
Then we see that our girls are pregnant. Their bellies are telling us I'm in trouble. How are our boys doing?
Very little is being done for our boys.
So are they also being abused at the same rates?
Our boys are also being abused, but the rate is not as high as for the girls. Yes.
Okay, but they are also in trouble. So this is something we need to look at even regarding the boy child. It's not a girl child problem. It's both, it's all our children.
It's actually all our children. It's just that the girls are more, the consequences for girls are more visible because they'll end up being pregnant, as opposed to a boy who will be sodomized, and therefore the scars are internal to them. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So how did we get here? What are we doing? Is it a cultural thing that other people don't do around the world? Why are these numbers so bad here?
Well, it's what we are not doing or what we stopped doing.
Okay.
We are not talking to our children. We are no longer monitoring what our girls are doing at home. We are happy to send our children to relatives or leave them with people we don't know and not follow through to find out what is going on. And also when our girls speak to us or our children speak to us, we don't listen as parents. So these are the consequences of not bothering to take care of our children and have conversations with them as parents, as relatives, to find out what do they know and to teach them values around sexuality, to teach them when is it appropriate. They have been exposed in our TVs, in the social media.
Yes, even CS Mago has said it's porn that's on our phones.
But how many of us check? We are happy to buy a phone to a child. But do we go forward to check, what does my child do with this phone?
What do they actually
watch? Which sites are they visiting? What information do they have? Is it appropriate? So that we can be able to teach them and educate them about appropriate behavior.
Okay, so I see a value in sex education for sure, but can I sex educate my child out of incest if there's already a cultural problem where maybe the men in my family don't see like this biological relationship means it's a taboo, it's a no-go zone, like it doesn't matter what I tell my daughter?
In African culture, actually, incest is a taboo. So in the first instance, it shouldn't happen.
Okay.
The fact that it's happening means there is something you're not doing right within the family unit.
That's what I want to know.
So that is what we need to do. What are our children doing? How do they spend their time? When they are with us, how do you show emotions to them? How do you express our love for them? Who tells them, I love you?
Okay.
And what does it mean to them?
Actually, that has come up where parents are saying it's these people, these Western tabias of kissing our children on the lips and being super affectionate. Traditionally in African culture, we didn't do that. Could that be part of the problem?
Not really.
Okay.
We don't have a culture of using those kind of words, but we do it in how we express it through our actions. For example, you will see unnecessary touching, unnecessary gifting of a certain child within the family. And when you try to ask, why are you gifting this child this kind of gifts? What did they do? When they make mistakes, you're excusing them. Then you're asking, as a parent, why are you excusing this behavior? And the child says, I can get away with it. When you dig deeper to find out, you've realized that there's a deeper relationship between these two within the family unit.
Okay.
People are looking and children are experimenting to find out, how do you kiss? Who was the first person to kiss you? Where do they learn that from?
But that's not new. We even have phrases in English like kissing cousins and things like that. I'm not saying people should be kissing their cousins. I'm just saying that's not new. So why in 2020 are we doing so badly? That statistic in the news really shocked me that we're number 3 in the world when it comes to teen pregnancies.
I don't know about the world, but for sure there is a problem.
Yes.
What we do know is that our teens today are very exposed. There's a lot of content everywhere we go, from radio, from TV, from the internet, from friends, from just walking around even within the public spaces. So the question is, how do we caution to make sure that the right content in the appropriate age is given to the extent that the child understands it. Because what you realize that most of them don't fully understand this content. And so they'll go and experiment or they'll go ahead with what is there because our rules of engagement as African society is that if your father says, come here or go and pick for me this in the bedroom, Our rules of society is to say, you say yes. You don't ask why.
You're so right.
You just go.
Even at my age, if my father calls me today and says, Wajiko, come home, I'm going home. I'm doing
and that
exactly.
is the challenge. And that is the challenge. So the children don't know how to say no. They also don't know how to speak out and say this is inappropriate. And with the few who do speak out, the first thing is don't believe them as parents, because you're like, what are you talking about? Because at that age, you're imagining a 6-year-old coming to say, Mommy, this person, my brother touched me inappropriately. It's not something you expect to hear from your child. So the first reaction you'll find parents have is that they refuse to believe and tell them, shut up. By keeping quiet, we are continuing to enable that relationship, because whoever is a perpetrator feels, then they are now being justified to continue that kind of act. But if we believed them and took time to dig further, we'll be able to support many of them.
Okay.
Yes.
I really like what you said, just to take you a little bit back, about our children being exposed but not having a context. The biology of sexuality is actually quite easy to understand, but the emotions behind it, the values behind it, that's what's missing.
That is what we are missing to teach our children. They'll go to school and they learn about the physical features and what they are called. But when they do happen, what are they supposed to do, for example? When they realize their hormones, they're getting emotional about certain things, that in the presence of certain individuals, they get excited. Who teaches them how to manage that excitement? Who teaches them when they see their body behaving differently, how do they react? In the cultural societies, we used to have aunties and uncles who used to then, pick the girls and the boys to one unit and explain these things. We no longer have that. Your child is your child.
That's true. We had an elegant system.
Exactly. So
in our family
setting.
Space
in that urban setting or the new setting to teach that.
Okay.
Yes.
I love what you're saying, Angelina. Mike Wachira has some responses from our Twitter and Facebook, and do we have Instagram feed? I wonder.
No, we do. And of course, we want to hear your thoughts and opinions about this issue, because like we said, it's an issue that people tend to sweep under the carpet. And usually, and it's good that Angelina is here, because I'd like to ask, usually when you hear these sorts of cases going on, very quickly the family is called together, then they go and see the chief, and then some quick kunji is held and some goats are exchanged, and then people, just sort of sweep the issue under the carpet. And even when it goes to court, it takes quite some time for this issue to be sorted out. So Angelina, I just want to find out from you, like, what should happen to support these girls? Because usually when the girls come home and you're looking at the person who's a perpetrator, that's the father. That's the person who you do not expect to commit this sort of offense. Where can such a girl go to report? You go to report to your mom tells you, no, it didn't happen, or maybe it was your fault, or something or the other, and then you find that the whole thing is just swept under the carpet. What recourse does such a child have?
Well, thank you, Mike, for that. First thing you say, please believe the child. It's very difficult for children to lie. So when the child tells you, first thing, believe them. Secondly, let them go to a hospital. For such a child, what we are saying is that the schools have protocols which demand that, for example, if they observe any changes in a child, they need to report. If it's at home, then whoever they reach out to, whether it is an auntie, a cousin, a brother, please support that child to access medical care.
Wait, you said the schools have this framework?
Yes, they do.
So
our Teacher Service Commission has a policy which every teacher in this country must follow.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we come back in 2021, every parent has a right to ask, in this school, is there a policy regarding reporting on abuse?
Yes, they do have that. And at home, whoever they reach out to, because they'll find someone whom they find to be, they're safe with. So whoever it is they reach out, whether it is a mother, whether it is a cousin, please take that child first to a hospital, your nearest facility, for medical care, because there are certain diseases they may be exposed to which you can prevent if they are able to reach there. Okay. For certain organizations like ourselves, we have hotlines where you can anonymously call and say, I think there's a child in this space who needs support. You don't have to give us further details. We'll take it up from that point. Our officers, our police office also has a hotline. You can call that line and give the details. You don't have to give all the information. They will take action. What we are saying, let's speak out.
Yes.
Let more of us come out and say it so that we can be able to save lives.
Okay.
Yes.
I love that. We're actually going to call the hotline in just a few minutes. But first, Mike, do you have some feedback?
Yeah, let's get some feedback. We'd really like to hear more from you around this issue, because think about it. You had the statistics. Over 370,000 girls, adolescent girls between the age of 15 and 17 are pregnant. That means probably 1 in 5 And that 1 in 5 might be your daughter, it might be somebody in your neighborhood, it might be your cousin, it might be your relative, it could be somebody you know. So we want to hear more from you about what your thoughts are on this issue. You can get in touch with us on #TheLoop, on the Loop K24, and of course on all our social media handles. That's the Loop K24 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. More with Angelina Sikanda in a short while. We'll take a short break and then come back for more. And welcome back to The Loop on K24 with me, Mike Wachira, and Valentine Njoroge. And this is the bold and fresh look at our lives here in Kenya. Today we're discussing the issue of incest and alongside that the issue of teen pregnancies. We've seen the cases have ballooned. We're talking about over 370,000 cases at any one time. That means about 1 in 5 girls are pregnant. Now you just imagine this, that there is an adolescent girl somewhere in your neighborhood. It could be your daughter, it could be your cousin, it could be somebody you know, one of your relatives. And chances are that they're probably going to get pregnant. What do you do? But even more importantly, can you imagine the sort of trauma and stigma that a girl like that would go through once she goes through that sort of situation? So what we decided to do is go out and find out what exactly is it that is causing or driving these high cases of teen pregnancies, and what are the repercussions to adolescent girls, and we filed this report.
1 in every 5, a number for many people, but this is the number of girls bearing children before they turn 19. According to the same research carried out by the Ministry of Health, only 2% of teenage mothers resume school. Domestic violence and poverty have been cited as the main contributors in the increasing cases. This is due to the fact that most of the girls flee their homes and seek refuge with strangers who in turn take advantage. Eunice, not her real name, knows this only too well. Every single day she dreads going back home as her stepfather has been the source of her misery by taking advantage of her. He has ruined her self-esteem.
Anichapanga ndio. Si ati ananichapa, ati anachukua kiboko ananichapa. Ni makofi ananipea, tunakiona akinipea kofi. Ni vitu zenye hadi takani upeane kofi ama uchapane. Ndakano hadi sometimes mama alimwambia akiona nimekosa anakalisha mtoto chini alafu ananiongelesha, nisiposikia ndiye anaanza kunichapa, na yeye anichapangia, ananipiganga tu maslap.
Home is no longer a sanctuary and she opts to keep the peace at home by staying silent.
Nikishaambia then mama anaenda kumkataza, unapata naleta vita kwa nyumba. So sometimes nanyamazianga tu juu mamangu obvious kuna amenichapa, dadi amenichapa kwa vitu zenye hadi hazifai. Nikiambia mama anaenda kuambia dadi, then fight inaanza.
However, there are people willing to give her a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on. People like Pauline Juma, the founder of Rebirth of a Queen Rescue Center. Established 1 year ago, the facility provides a safe haven for vulnerable girls.
The reasons teenage pregnancy itakuwa imerise, number 1 ni poverty. Kwa sababu msichana akikosa sanitary towels na the only person anaezomba sanitary towels ni boyfriend, na kabla boyfriend ampe sanitary towels lazima we exchange, ndio nikupe, then msichana unapata amepata mimba.
Eunice hasn't gotten pregnant yet. Other girls though have not been so fortunate.
Mimi sinapitia hiyo shida ya venye napigwa na babangu, nikiona babangu sitaki kukaa kwa nyumba, si ndio? So napata wengine wamechoka naye hadi wanatoroka kwa nyumba. Na sasa wenye wametoroka kwa nyumba ndio unaweza pata sasa huko ndio watashikiwa, warepiwa, wapate mimba.
Due to the financial constraints caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, most girls have been forced to engage in transactional sex. The money they earn is then used to support their families as schools have closed, and with that, the provision of school meals and sanitary towels.
Kwa shule, sometimes kuna wazungu walikuwa wanatoka huko na wanaleta hizo pads difference kama hizi za hapa, si ndio? Sasa hizo ndio watu tulikuwa tunagaiwa shule, tulikuwa tunagaiwa mingi, mimi nilikuwa nachukua napelekea mama juu mimi sijaanza.
The Ministry of Health also noted the rise in the mortality rate during childbirth by teen mothers. This is due to the fact that they shy away from visiting health facilities due to stigma.
Dadi alikuwa amesema ati sasa mimi sitaenda shule, nitabaki hivyo juu hakuna venye anaweza nitafutia shule na sijapata around 300, alisema hivyo.
Gigi na Magundu, Kate.
Wow, I mean, and there you have it. Like, I mean, you've heard exactly what the kind of experience is for an adolescent girl who, so you're supposed to be finding sanctuary at home. You're supposed to be thinking that, you know, out there I might get violated, but at home at least I know that's a safe place for me to come and, you know, continue my life. But that is the place where she's experiencing the most violence. But then also think about it this way. Where is she supposed to go? Who is she supposed to report to? And ask yourself, are we taking this issue really seriously? Where a girl goes and reports an issue like that, talks to her mother, talks to people in her home, and everybody wants to protect the dignity of the perpetrator at the expense of the survivor. It's really something, you know, really need to, you know, talk about it really seriously. And speaking of which, we want to hear more on your opinions and thoughts on this issue. And you can talk to us using hashtag #TheLoopK24. Remember, on our social media pages, which are #TheLoopK24 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Let's just sample some of the things that you're saying. James McLean comes and says, I think the music that our young people listen to has played a big role in the increase in teenage pregnancies. You cannot ignore the impact of music in the society. Thank you so much, James. Shiko Keheka says, it's been a while since I watched TV. The Loop K24 is about, and well, to be honest, I appreciate that for the first time, mainstream media is giving teen pregnancies a priority on prime time to extensively converse on the challenges facing the most of these girls in our society. Remember, you can use hashtag #TheLoopK24. Keep talking to us and we'll sample your comments. But Angelina and Valentine, like, you know, you're hearing these issues and you're hearing these numbers keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And it's like we don't know where to begin, where to catch this issue, or where we should even start.
I love what Shiko said, that we've prioritized the issue. That's the point of the loop, so thank you so much. James, you mentioned something about music, and when we were on the phone, Angelina, you mentioned the same thing.
Yes, we need to listen. I know most people would like to make fun of Ezekiel Mutua when he tells you this music, the content is inappropriate. Because that is where our children get their dressing that we keep talking about, that we are saying is inappropriate. But that is also where the message is being sent, which is wrong, about sexuality. So we need to watch and listen to that music. Whether it is in Sheng or common language, we need to understand, what does this say? And there's nothing wrong with a parent asking a child, explain to me what you understand by this music. Listen to your child more. Talk to them. Have conversation. They will tell you where this is happening. They'll tell you what they know, and then you know what they don't know, and therefore where to step in as a parent and support them.
You also know what's going on the playground, and what things are being said and what's being talked about and what's normalized. Because I think one of the things with these songs is that they normalize casual sex. They normalize, relationships that don't matter. It's not like it's a serious thing to to involve yourself with somebody sexually.
That is true. The songs and the videos that are going out with our music in the music industry, we really need to step in and look at them afresh. Because that's where we go wrong. Also, parents need to step in and be involved in the lives of their children. And especially right now with COVID, you're seeing a lot of cases of sexual violence on our girls, and you're asking parents, what is your child doing? In 24 hours, they were sleeping, they woke up, where did they go to? Who did they speak to? If they were on the phone, what were they texting about? Whether it is in shorthand, find out from them to tell you, what does this word mean? Then you'll know what our children are doing. So it's about time we stop normalizing wrong things and normalizing content that is inappropriate in the name of nobody listens to Ezekiel Mutua. He's there for a purpose. Government has seen the need for us to regularize some of these things, and it's important that we support rather than bash him for the things that he do.
So Kenya has one of the best sexual offences acts in the world, right? We have minimum sentencing, we have no statute of limitations, so even if you commit an act in 2018 and evidence turns up in 2030, you can still be prosecuted. Where have we gone wrong with this? Yet with such beautiful law, why do we still have so many rapists? How are we manufacturing them at such an alarming rate?
We are not manufacturing them. What you're not been doing is interacting more with the law. One, in terms of understanding that there are laws in this country, and which are very many, and which support us to be able to get justice. Secondly, there are certain aspects of the law that are yet to be actualized. For example, we need to have a sexual offenders register, so that within your locality you know who are the sex offenders in this area, what are they doing. If they are pedophiles, let's make sure they don't have access to children, for example. If the chief knew where they are, then they'll be more vigilant to check on what they do on a daily basis. But we don't have that register. The judiciary is yet to implement it.
Why haven't they implemented that? What
can we do? Well, there's a whole machinery and framework that needs to be put in place.
So
that's supposed to help us be able to action that. We wish that that can actually come to
I'm sorry, it just sounds very simple. These are convicted rapists. It's literally in my mind a spreadsheet. This is who you are, this is your ID number, this is where you live.
And the people around you are able to monitor to make sure if the sexual offences is about children, we check and find out that person cannot work, for example, in a school. That person cannot be a caregiver or working as a house help in somebody's house. No, they cannot do that.
Teacher,
exactly. So we are yet to actualize such kind of things. If we did, then we will start, that would be a lesson to everyone to say, listen, I don't want to be on that list, and therefore I need to be careful about how I act on my sexuality. I need to be careful how I behave in front of people.
So we need we need stronger consequences.
We need stronger consequences.
I'm very curious about that list and what the hiccup is, because to me it just seems very straightforward.
It's something the judiciary say, they keep telling us they're working on it, but it's something we really hope to see. Secondly, we also want the people to understand that, yes, as we bring these cases to the law, let's stop excusing the perpetrators. People are called in as witnesses who refuse to go and support a victim. You refuse to go and support your neighbor. Tomorrow it will be your child. You refuse to name your son who is a perpetrator. Tomorrow they'll be doing the same to your sister, to your brother, to somebody, to the neighborhood. And the next thing you keep saying, my son is. If you realize your child has a problem, the issue is that we also look at prison as punishment.
But prison
is actually rehabilitation. It's a place where we are saying, you've got a problem. Can you go and get fixed? before you come back and interact with us.
I'm
so
actually
allow
okay
that
with
space
prison being a
for someone to
punishment.
go and be rehabilitated.
Right.
All right? It's not punishment. It's a place for rehabilitation. And if we had that in mind, then you as a parent, if you know your son has a problem, you should be able to say, listen, police, I think my son has a problem. Help me.
But Angelina, do we even know one rehabilitated rapist who we can say you are convicted and now after years in prison, you've come out on the other side, you're no longer a rapist?
They are there, but they won't speak out because who wants to be known as a rapist? Why? Society stigmatizes them. When they come back to society, people want to, to not associate with them. So what are they supposed to do moving forward with their lives? So we are saying we need to be able to know who they are. They need to be supported and helped. It doesn't mean that they cannot come back. What we are saying, there is some habit you have that you need to stop. And they need to learn what is the right thing to do so that they can engage in society in a more respectful manner.
Okay.
Yes.
Before I ask my final question, I think it's time we give our audience time to respond. I want to hear what the Twitter sphere is saying. Remember, you can very easily... Actually, why am I talking, Mike? Yes?
No, listen. We really want to hear your feedback on this issue. Remember, we said we are bold and we're taking a fresh look at some of the issues that are, plaguing us as a society here in Kenya. And I have a question for Angelina before I even read this feedback. Not all men are rapists. Not all men are abusers. I know some pretty solid men out there. I think for me, one of the problems is that there are not enough men who are talking to other men. There are not enough men who are mentoring young boys and, around issues of healthy masculinity. So, Angelina, perhaps you could tell us, what are some of the things that men can do to be able to bring up a generation of men who are more conscious about how they exercise their power and the kind of masculinity that they have?
Well, thank you, Mike. What we're saying is that men, speak to your fellow men. All right? There's an appropriate place for sex. Stop keeping quiet when you see your fellow men doing something wrong. When they're whistling when a girl passes by, when they make derogative statements, when they shame girls as they walk around the neighborhood, when they keep pinpointing their physical features in public. If you see that and it's your friend, it's your colleague, it's your relative, come on, tell them, this is not right. This is not the way you talk to girls. If you're interested, there's a way and appropriate way to engage. We are asking our men, let's work together. It is not about we the women or we the girls. It is us. It's a generation we are messing up that's supposed to take the future. How will they take on the future when they have responsibilities as mothers at such an early age?
And they're also traumatized.
And for their health, it's also inappropriate. As your feature clearly says, some of these girls now, we are having a lot of maternal deaths because their body is not ready for the responsibility. So we are saying, let's walk the journey together. Let's work with our men. Let's talk to one another and see, what do you know? What don't you know? Where are we going wrong? Then we can get you the information that you require. The government has come out openly. The president has spoken, and he has said, chiefs will come for you because they do know, and you keep quiet. So let's speak out more. Let's converse more. We'll save more lives this way.
Okay.
Yes.
I like that. And men, this is a challenge to us. We are part of this society as well. So if we played a stronger role in, holding each other to a higher account, and saying we're not going to stand for these sorts of things. Because we want to see a society where everybody is safe and a society that progresses and we all move along together. All right? So we still want to hear more of your feedback. Remember, you can use the hashtag TheLoopK24 on all our social media pages. That's TheLoopK24 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And on Twitter, Ichimuntu says, poverty, culture, and partying. These are the causes of teen pregnancies. Fact, there are communities that allow young girls as old as, or rather as young as 12 to be married. So let's stop beating about the bush and handle issues from the grassroots.
I do like what he has to say, yes. That is a problem in Kenya. We do have some cultures here where child marriage is part of the culture. It's illegal nationally, but qua ground, literally different, yes.
There are certain things which are not our culture. For example, disco matanga. We did not have disco matanga until the other day. It's something that was coined by communities to deal with fundraising during funerals and burials. But what we are seeing is that that's the opportunity for people to prey on young girls. People go there to put in music so that you can dance provocatively. And whoever dances the most provocatively is the one who raises the most money.
Yeah.
That was not the point.
That's
so you
true.
miss the objective of what it is we are doing. Instead, we're normalizing crime in the name of fundraising.
We have to go to break, but before we do, one final question. You've got all these years of experience. You've worked with the TSC at, formulating safer schools for our kids. If you were in charge of this issue nationally, it's so broad, but where would you start? What would you do?
First, let's accept the data and stop fighting. Secondly, let us provide frameworks that would allow our children to speak out so that we can identify who are these people we need to speak to more, so that we can save the girls, we can identify the problem, and then provide means and ways to rectify those who have gone astray in society. Yes.
I love it. And you've echoed something that President Uhuru Kenyatta said earlier, that he wants the chiefs to know who these teenagers are and to make sure that they actually go for prenatal care. So thank you so much, Angelina Sikanda. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've shed so much light on this issue. We will be right back after the break.
Cool.
And welcome back to The Loop on K24. This is the bold and fresh look at our lives here in Kenya with me, Mike Wachira, and Valentine Njoroge. Thank you so much for your feedback that's coming in fast and furious. We really want to read and interact with you more. So remember, we also want to hear what your last word is, and you can take a quick WhatsApp video and tell us what you think about this topic we're discussing here today. The number is on the screen. So just take a short video, send it to us, because this is an issue that we need to continue talking about. Now, of course, remember, you can talk to us on the hashtag TheLoopK24 on all our social media pages, which is The Loop at K24 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Valentine, I see you have another guest here.
We have the wonderful, the amazing Njoroge, who is a psychosexual therapist. Every time I say that, someone's like, Ati? What does that mean? What do you do?
I work with couples and individuals and adolescents in many, many different issues regarding depression, anxiety. When I focus on the psychosexual issues, it's looking at dysfunctions, so around erectile dysfunction, vaginismus, or even looking at trauma, sexual trauma.
Okay. How long have you practiced?
Gosh.
And I hear an English accent. So how long have you practiced?
I've been in the field of sexual health probably for 10, 15 years.
Oh, okay, okay.
So that's working with sort of STIs and infections, and then sort of migrating into working with relationships.
Okay. One of the reasons I wanted us to have this topic is I used to be a sex writer. And that can be it just highlights how sex is supposed to be this joyous, this amazing, this delicious thing, right? But then quickly, especially in Kenya, you realize that a lot of the population has some kind of trauma in this particular area.
Yes.
And it makes me sad.
Yes.
Because it takes years to recover from trauma, doesn't it?
It does. It
okay.
does.
So let's just dive in. Our kids, we're not, they're going to be home for the next 6 months now that school has been cancelled till 2021. Okay, and something is definitely wrong. How do we make our homes safe for our children?
I suppose it's an interesting question, because what does safety mean? Safety to me in my home would mean something completely different to you or somebody else in the country.
Oh, that's
so
a good
we've got to define what is a safe environment. What was their environment that they grew up in? Because we're making the assumption that their environment was safe enough that they can then replicate it into their own environment with their kids.
Right, because for me, safe means my child feels he can express himself, he can move around as and when he pleases. That's what safe means. For someone else, it could just be a roof over your head.
And you've got food on the table.
Right.
Yeah,
and
so we've got to really define, what does safety mean?
Oh.
And is that something that needs to come from the above, so that we're working to an equal template of this is safety?
So, okay, what to you is safety? Like, just to avoid trauma, because that's what we're discussing today. To avoid trauma, what is safety?
It would include having a roof over their head.
Okay.
That there is food on the table.
Okay.
That there's somebody older than they are who can look after them. Who is somebody who is known to the family, but safe enough for them to feel that they can stay with them. Somebody that they can talk to. And a relationship with my children, definitely, that they can come to me and talk to any issues that they have. So the environment is safe holistically. It's loving, it's expressive.
You raised something there. We tend to call, I'm looking for house help, and you're told there's Jerry in Nyeri, and you send her fare and she comes to Nairobi.
And we've got no idea who Jerry is.
Within 2 days, you've left her in your house because she's so-and-so's cousin in Gishagi.
Yeah. And we've got no idea what safe was in her home.
Oh. Okay,
Did she come from a home that wasn't safe?
So
our definition of no safe.
So even how we hire now needs to come into question. Who is this person? Why is she or he in your house and around your children? Okay, fine, fair enough. And then we want to raise, I was having this conversation with my sister. You want to raise a self-assured adult who can say, don't touch me, this is okay with me, this isn't okay with me. But we also don't want our kids giving us a lip. You don't want a 6-year-old saying, Mommy, don't touch me. So
it's finding the balance between respect and respect of parents and authority, but yet being able to distinguish that even though I respect you, it doesn't give you free reign of my body.
Okay,
so how do you
what does that look like? When uncle says to niece, come and sit in my lap.
Now that wouldn't be a conversation that they should have.
Oh.
Because that child has got a responsible parent who looks after them.
Okay.
So is it for the parents to engage the other adults to say, actually, this inappropriate touch or crossing boundaries or proximity with my children is something I'm not very comfortable with.
Okay.
So in that way, it's a blanket decision that you have for all people, whether it's granny, whether it's uncle, whether it's the house help, whether it's just something that's universal.
Okay.
Only certain people are allowed within a close proximity to your child.
So this leads us to hugging as well. If your child says they don't want to hug or they don't want to shake so-and-so's hand.
Yes.
Okay, I'm one of the parents who's like, you're just going to deal with it if he doesn't want to say hi to you. Is that the right thing to do? Or am I being rude for no reason?
What, to not allow the child to...
To tell my child, if you want to say hi to Shosho, if you want to hug Shosho, go ahead. If you don't want to, it's okay.
But why not guide them? If you're there, or another adult is with them, guide them along so they can say hello, they feel safe to do so because you're there, and then step away. Then that way, no one is offended.
Oh,
the child is supported by your presence, and the shosho then gets greeted in the way that she feels.
I'm learning how to be more polite. Yeah, I've just been like,
so she doesn't feel disrespected.
Oh, okay.
Because of the cultural differences.
I insist on a high five, but I don't insist on hugs and kisses. Yes.
And that doesn't need to, you don't need to give huge hugs to everybody. It should be just for the immediate family.
Are there signs, I know this is very important to mothers, you're sitting at home, you're looking at your little munchkins. Are there signs that your child is in trouble? That maybe something inappropriate has happened?
Yeah, based on how you know them, what has changed?
Okay.
Have they become withdrawn? Are they isolating? Do they look worried? Are they just tearful out of the blue for no reason?
Okay.
Are they keeping secrets?
How do you know if they're keeping secrets?
No, you're asking them and things don't quite add up. Where were you? And then when you ask the question later, another story comes. Because children don't lie very well.
Okay.
And we can always tell when our children are lying.
Yeah. I have more questions for Julie and we'll be right back after the break.
All right, welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, this is The Loop with Valentine and Mike, and this is the bold and fresh look at our lives here in Kenya. Remember, we still want to hear more of your opinions using the hashtag TheLoopK24 on all our social media pages, which is The Loop at K24 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But here we have Julie with us, who is a psychosocial therapist.
Sexual.
I'm Kikuyu, so you know these things are difficult. Psychosexual therapist.
Yes.
So Julie, I love what you're saying. And one of the things that happens in families most of the time is when you have got young girls in the house, and then you have visitors who come who are men. You quickly hear people telling the girls, go and change what you're wearing. You know, there are men who are coming, or there are men in the house, sit properly. You know, there are men here. Why are we transferring the burden of managing men's sexual urges to young girls? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you inviting men you know who could potentially harm your daughter into that space? Shouldn't be I mean, shouldn't they be the ones who are being asked to leave?
True.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is very valid.
Yeah.
But is the conversation then, how do we have that conversation with our daughters all the time? So it's just not left for when men visit, that they know actually, this is what I wear, this is how I sit, this is how I present myself in a way that's decent for me as a young woman, rather than having to hold myself back because somebody else can't hold their own emotions of sexuality towards me.
Yeah. That's interesting. My
But you see,
sister
but also,
Go on.
Nobody tells men how to sit.
No, they don't.
So why is the burden always on girls? No
yeah.
one tells men how to sit. Yeah. No one tells men what to wear. Yeah. No one tells men anything.
So how do we give our daughters the voice that they can actually feel confident in their sexuality?
So actually what I was going to say,
yes.
I was having this conversation with my sister and she was reminding me that my mother used to tell us in Kikuyu, you're a young woman, you're becoming a young woman. And she encouraged us to be proud. She said, wait, in Kikuyu, like it's important that you ringa just a little bit. Even these men, you know, sometimes you say hi, sometimes you don't say hi.
Yes.
They shouldn't see you laughing and welcoming all the time, like create distance. So she taught us how to do that. And she even went as far as to tell me to be rude. She said, you don't owe people manners once they start disrespecting you. You can be rude. You can insult people.
And it's not rudeness, isn't it?
She just told me, be rude, marume, like straight up.
Is it being able to be protective of your territory?
Right.
But even if it comes across in a rude way, that's not the intention. I'm just protecting what's mine. And if you take offense...
Okay. We need to get some responses. Mike, what are people on Twitter saying?
Yeah, let's get some responses here. Banu Khan, hi Banu. I know Banu. Banu says, teenage pregnancies in Kenya skyrocketed in the last 4 months. Why are we seeing a sudden spike and what can be done to avert this major social problem? Evans Bet also gives us his thoughts on hashtag the Loop K24 says, according to this report, 20,828 girls aged between 10 and 14 years have become mothers, while the older girls aged between 15 to 19, 24,106 are either pregnant or mothers already since COVID-19 pandemic hit. Think about that. Since the COVID pandemic hit, it's not even been here 6 months, and already you're seeing these sorts of spikes. Now, kids are at home during this period. They're going back to school in January. Can you imagine how the numbers will skyrocket between now and January? Valentine.
Yeah, those numbers are startling. And something else that scares me, when you think about almost 400,000 girls every year pregnant, it means every 3 years we have 1.2 million Kenyan homes started by teenagers, right? Led by teenagers. It's shocking in a population that's so small by global standards. We're only 50-something million. So, Julie, unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I want to hear your hard-hitting fact. Like, what would you say on this subject? How do we keep our homes safe? How do we know if our kids are in trouble? Yes, I want to hear.
One hard-hitting fact would be, if a child comes to you, you may be the first person that they've disclosed, whether it's incest, whether it's rape, whether it's abuse. The way you respond will determine how they believe their truth.
Oh.
It's a lot of responsibility.
I felt that one here.
Yeah, when somebody comes to you saying their truth, believe them. Don't downplay their emotions, because as adults we do that.
Right.
If someone says, I'm feeling really sad, no, what do you have to be sad about? You're healthy, you're happy, you're
That's
okay.
True.
Hear their emotion and just go with it. And then if you're unable to deal with it yourself, signpost them, but be with them to support them through their journey.
What do you mean by signpost them?
There must be people who offer care, who offer support, who offer psychosexual support. Even myself, there's different doctors who work and gather chain of evidence if they need to gather that to justify or confirm a rape. Be with them when that process happens.
So be with them where they are.
Where they are.
You've told me this,
exactly.
I believe you, I accept your emotions. I'm not
Validate
going to talk
feelings.
you up or down. I'm just going to accept what you've said and then signpost you. Okay, I love that. Thank you so much, Julie Njoroge. And how can people reach you? Because you're one of our fantastic resources.
On Instagram, on Twitter, Yes.
Okay.
I'll share my handles on the side.
Okay, perfect. So there you have it. That is Julie Gediregoko, and you can reach her very easily. She's told you, see our therapy on Instagram, right? That's how I remember to reach you. So, and now this has been The Loop. It's been a fantastic evening. Thank you so much for your feedback, for spending your Friday evening with us. Show number 1, woohoo! This is Valentine Njoroge. Remember, we are taking a bold and fresh look at our lives in Kenya today. And Mike Wachira, I thought you'd have something.
I'm here. Yeah, I haven't gone too far.
I've lost Mike.
Okay, thank you so much, of course, to our guests tonight, who've been Angelina Sikanda from the Center for Rights Education and Awareness, and, of course, Julie Gedire, who's a psychosexual therapist. I got that right. Psychosexual. All right, I'm here with Jason Rudo. Mama! Yeah! All right. It's good to see you as well. That's
nice quotes.
I know, man. You know, I have to look nice, huh?
Hey, man, that was such an interesting topic and, you know, very difficult conversation to have. Well, good job.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, you know, this is the thing that I was also saying, that men need to have these conversations with each other.
We must.
And, you know, we have to start trying to mentor young boys.
Yeah.
You know, positive masculinity, you know, we can't let them keep thinking that the idea of being masculine is, you know, getting all these mamas pregnant and all this sort of things.
I think the era of blaming the short skirts is
it's long gone.
It's long gone.
We can't keep doing that. All right, so you got something interesting that you're doing on the show, and I'm really excited about it.
I thought you'd never ask.
Yes.
So, guys, welcome. My name is Jason Druno, and right after The Loop on K24, we will be having what we call Unplugged, hosted by yours truly, me. And here is a space for art.
Right.
Basically, I want to have conversations with different artists. I want to talk about art. You know, a lot of times we focus mostly on
music.
Yes. So you see, it's a problem. But what about the other artists? We have visual artists. We have lots of artists.
Right.
I want to invite all of them here so that we can have different and awesome conversations.
So are you saying then that it will not just be musicians? We'll have guys who do graffiti, we'll have guys who do body art and all that sort of thing.
So long as it's art, this is going to be the space for art.
Where's the artist?
No, there was a problem. What happened was, I made the phone call.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is Jason, I'm on TV.
Yeah, all right.
You guys were like, watch a wongo.
Okay.
So I had to do this first without an artist,
right,
so that they can see for real that I'm on TV, so that when I invite them, at least they will honor and respect my invite.
Before we close, who's the artist coming?
I'm not going to tell you. Let's wait for next week on Unplugged, right here with me, Jason Druno. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to hosting you guys starting next week.
All right, awesome. And thank you so much, of course, for your feedback. Keep your feedback coming through. We still want to hear what your last word is. The WhatsApp number is on the screen. Send your short WhatsApp video telling us what your thoughts and opinions are on this issue that we've discussed here today. Once again, thank you to Julie Gedire and to Angelina Sikanda for coming and talking to us about this issue. But of course, remember that The Loop continues next Friday, right here on K24. And for myself and Valentine, it's a good night.